Hello and welcome to my top 10 first views of 2018. These are the 10 worst movies that I saw for the first time in 2018. None of these movies are actually made in 2018, but I didn't see them until 2018, and hence they are in my list of movies I've seen in 2018. It's a list that has 134 movies, and these 10 that I'm about to tell you about are the 10 at the very bottom of the list. Starting up at the one that's farthest from the bottom. Number 10. Next, Avengers, Heroes of Tomorrow. I saw this movie on September the 8th, and usually Marvel always beats DC unless we're talking about cartoons, because when it comes to cartoons, DC is miles ahead of the competition. It didn't help that this movie was also made for younger kids. In other words, I was not the targeted audience. Also poorly animated. I guess they figured the young kids wouldn't notice. Number 9. The Angry Birds movie. Saw this movie on March the 7th. Looked like a good movie when I watched the trailer, but then when I actually saw the movie, I didn't know what the targeted audience really was. Some jokes were really immature. I even found them kind of cringy. And some parts of the movie seemed to be made for adults only, but I can't really remember what those parts were. However, this movie was a comedy that didn't make me laugh. And is there anything worse than a comedy that can't make you laugh? Well, it seems so. Number 8. Tron. I saw this on February the 10th. Now, I know this is kind of considered a classic by some, and let it be no secret that I love movies from the 80s. So, the first part of the movie isn't really the problem. It takes place in the 80s, in the real world. But then the movie moves on inside the world of computers. And it's cool for a while because they got this nice filter, but after about 5 minutes, that gets kind of old as well. And I guess that's kind of why this movie is on this list. Number 7. Kikis Delivery Service, the live-action version. Saw this on January the 5th. This was one of the earliest movies I saw in 2018. So at the time I watched this was actually the very worst movie that I've seen the whole year. But then I saw a couple of more movies and it wasn't. I've heard a lot of bad things about this movie. Apparently the main actor is not believable as a young girl. I didn't really notice. And after watching this movie, I kind of thought that it wasn't so bad. But apparently there were a lot of movies that I saw that I found better for some reason. So this movie is mostly here because of how I made the list, which could be considered fair. Yet, unlike movies previously mentioned in this list, I could see myself watching this one again. But then again, that's mostly because it's in Japanese and I need to hear more Japanese because I'm trying to learn Japanese. This isn't a great movie. It's just not that bad. I didn't really want to give it this bad of a rating, but rules are rules. No modding of the list. Number 6. Tron Legacy. Watched this on August 26th. Hey, look, it's Tron again, and this time it's not made in the 80s. Also, it's starring a teenager, giving it that YA feeling I kind of hate. I guess there was a reason for movies to use adults to play teenager back in the good old days. Maybe acting skills should be considered of higher value than looking the part. Then again, I never found the acting in this movie to be bad. So maybe I'm just a grumpy old man who doesn't appreciate watching beautiful young faces on a screen. Anyhow, that's the least of my complaints about this movie. The filter for the computer world is gone. So, yeah. Also, the idea of a computer world was kind of stupid in the 80s. If the movie was made in the 90s, it would be plain stupid. In the early 2000s, it would have been childishly... Yeah, I keep messing up on the word. Childishly stupid. But to make a movie in 2008, it would be kind of brain dead stupid. Brain dead as in the state of mind, not the movie. Then again, that depends on how you interpret the movie. Yeah. Moving on. Now, the biggest problem with this movie is CGI Jeff Bridges. Now, I got nothing against Jeff Bridges. I just don't care for bad CGI. And basically all CGI is bad if you ask me. Especially younger versions of people we know from the real world. So to make a CGI character and then give them lots of screen time is a big no-no for me. The movie wasn't all bad. Tron was kind of cool in this movie. The words "I serve the users" feels kind of epic. Too bad there wasn't any more of that. Number 5. 30 minutes or less. Saw this on February the 2nd. A comedy that's kind of funny in some parts, kind of cringy in other parts. Don't really have a lot to say about this movie. And maybe I shouldn't. After all, it was one of the worst movies that I saw last year. Number 4. The Cloverfield Paradox. Saw this on February the 18th. I kind of like stories that take place in a small world, so once I watch the movie, I'll be done with it. Kind of the quality before quantity principle. So, a movie that tackles the questions like, are there infinite realities, isn't really my cup of tea. I prefer green tea or chai. It's kind of weird that I rated a movie that takes place in space so low, considering that The Martian was my favorite movie back in 2016. Number 3. Resident Evil Retribution, which I saw on January the 13th. Yes, I saw a movie on my birthday that dared to be bad enough to make it to the top 10 worst movie list. Yet this movie had an awesome start. Playing things backwards is a simple yet cool effect that I've really learned to appreciate in 2018. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie isn't as good. This wasn't even the best movie that I saw on that very day, since Howard the Duck stands over 100 places higher on my list. Then again, Howard the Duck isn't as good, isn't as bad as people really say. Resident Evil movie, on the other hand, yeah, it has its problems. One of them is the many critters in the movie. All the dangerous zombies and mutations in large numbers that seems to do little more than slow down the progress of the protagonist and the other characters in the movie that probably have names and maybe even personalities, yet the movie only gives a shallow look at them. And that is probably the main problem with this movie, the shallowness of it. There seems to be no depth, even in the action. It kind of feels like I was watching a movie someone recorded with a hidden camera inside a movie theater. I kind of started wondering if there was something wrong with my sound system. Next, please. Number 2. So Undercover, which I saw on May 16th. So Forgettable would also work as a title. They say you want critics to either love your movie or hate it. Preferably the first more than the later. You want your audience to have strong feelings about your movie because you want them to talk about it. Because if there's nothing to talk about, then no one will know it exists. There is a reason I won't have a top 10 closest to the middle of my list movies I saw in 2018 video. There isn't anything special about movies making it to the middle of the list. And that's kind of what's wrong with So Undercover. It's not special. Number 1. Journey to Agartha. January the 21st. Now, from what I said about Kikis delivery service, you might have picked up on the fact that I like Japanese movies. So why is there a Japanese movie at the bottom of my list? Well, first of all, this movie was not what I expected. I bought this DVD because I thought it would be a fun adventure type of movie. Turned out to be a philosophical and psychological movie about death. Not the tone I was looking for. Also, like most Japanese movies, it had a slow pace. Something that can be refreshing considering the faster and faster pace the Western movies, especially kids movies, seem to have. However, when a movie doesn't entertain you, it only makes things worse. Didn't much care for the religious themes in the movie as well. Gave me a bad feeling. And that what makes it the worst movie I've seen in 2018. or that at least is the reason I remember it being the worst movie I've seen in 2018. Since I didn't write any notes when I made the list, because I didn't know I was going to make a top 10 worst movies of 2018 and a top 10 best movies of 2019. So yes, there will be a top 10 best first views of 2018. It should be released in a week or so. So until then, bye.